Hard to follow that up. So as you guys know, I was a group of roughly 5 to 10 reporters that followed the campaign in the field, full-time on the road for about a year and a half. I'll tell you a little bit about what a typical Trump rally was like before going into my spiel. So it was always more of like a concert than it was an actual political rally. Like people would show up at like 6 a.m. and line up to get a good seat. And then there would be people dressed like him at every rally. You know, people were bringing signs. And then, and Trump would come out, and it was like Springsteen was hitting the stage, and what would happen is, he would say things like, "We're going to build a wall," and it was like Springsteen playing "Born to Run" for this crowd. It was really something. It was unlike anything I'd ever seen before. It is unlike anything I will ever see in the future. I would talk to people. Hundreds and hundreds of Trump supporters in the last 2 years, and I'd talk to them and I would say, "Is there anything this guy can do to lose your vote?" And they would say nothing. One thing that always stuck out to me is after the Access Hollywood tape came out in September, we started seeing shirts at rallies that said, "We need someone to grab us by the blank." And so that kind of dedication was something I've never seen. So something with that in mind, something I think about often as we think about accountability journalism in the Trump era is, something that I've thought about is the amount of criticism that we in the media received after the election. And this has always bothered me. First of all, as reporters, it's not our job as reporters to win or lose elections. And secondly, when people say the media, I never quite know what they're referring to. There are many different types of journalism. There's sports journalism, fashion journalism, there's photojournalism, political journalism, magazine journalism, et cetera, and spread out across many, many, many different outlets. So when people say the media got Trump wrong, who are they referring to? Which ones? Taking the case of political journalism, which is broadly what we're referring to, not everyone covers politics in the same way. What we did at CBS was not what everyone at NBC was doing, or what CNN or Fox is doing. What the New York Times was doing was not the same as what the Washington Post was doing. Even within the New York Times, what the Upshot is doing is different than what Maggie Haberman is doing. So, whenever, my point is when people say that trust in the media is an all-time low, and they always cite this Gallup number that's in like the 40% range, I never know exactly what that's referring to. Trust in which media outlets? If you poll the 330 million people in this country about how they feel, whether they trust the New York Times, and then you pull that same number about how they feel about the National Enquirer, that number would vary quite a bit. Which brings me to my next point, which is, what fundamental changes do we need to make as journalists in the Trump era? And again, it depends on the type of journalism. But I dispute the premise that there needs to be fundamental changes to what we do as a profession. We don't need to change everything that this profession has done for centuries. And we don't need to change the rules because Donald Trump has become president. This is actually an incredible time to be a journalist. 2016 brought some of the best journalism that I have ever seen and ever will see. And I'm looking at someone like David Fahrenthold, who just won a Pulitzer. There are incredible reporters out there with many new and innovative ways to hold Donald Trump, Congress, House and Senate leadership, both on the Republican and Democrat side, accountable. And here's what I will say. Donald Trump does not get to decide what is or isn't good journalism. We don't need his affection. He's not journalism's father. For those of you who might be worried about constantly being characterized as fake news, stop worrying. Control what you can and just do good work. And that's what matters, because you'll never make everybody happy. And I'll close with this. A lot of people talk about the stakes being higher now. The stakes have always been high. The world didn't just start rotating on its axis. The need for great journalism was as great in the 90s as it is now. The need for accountability journalism will be as necessary now as it will be after Donald Trump leaves office. And for the most part, going back decades, the profession as a whole, and I realize I say that even as I decry generalizing in the media, the profession as a whole has risen to the challenge, and I have no doubt that this will remain the case.